Hey, what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're talking about progressive deathcore band Within the Ruins and their 6th full-length album, Blackheart, via eOne and Good Fight Music. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Hailing from Massachusetts, I have been a huge proponent of this group since I happened upon a copy of Elite back in 2013 and have purchased every single album since, wanting to soak in every last drop of their seemingly endless supply of djenty wankery. And despite being incredibly consistent from album to album, whether it be 2014's comic book-inspired Phenomena or the increased implementation of clean vocals and sing-along choruses on 2017's Halfway Human, Within the Ruins continue to largely fly under the radar, at least in comparison to many of their peers, despite, at least in my opinion, being one of the most talented acts in the genre. Blackheart marks the first album in about a decade to not feature longtime vocalist Tim Goergen, with new frontman Steve Tinnon taking up the reins. And while changing vocalists can often be for the worse, I have to say that Steve not only maintains the same level of intensity we've come to expect from this band, but also brings with him some welcome new dynamics. As much as I appreciated Tim, his style was frequently quite uniform, especially in comparison to the rest of the musicianship. With Steve, I hear opportunities for a broader array of highs, lows, and everything in between that I've always felt was the one lacking component of their sound. But really, the vocal choices have always been a very secondary concern when it comes to Within the Ruins. First and foremost, this has always been a very guitar and riff-driven band, thanks in no small part to the trademark approach and tone of lead guitarist and founding member Joe Cocchi. And seemingly to make this point absolutely clear to the listeners, the last 5 albums have each featured a new installment in the ongoing instrumental series Ataxia. Part 5, as well as the other instrumental, 86th, continue to exemplify just how impressive both the performances and the songwriting of these musicians truly are, vocals or no vocals. And seriously, nobody else really sounds or plays quite like Joe. The way I generally talk about the power of being able to identify certain vocalists from just a few notes is the same way I feel about Within the Ruins hooks. There's just something about his style that feels so wholly indivisible from his very being. I think for the first time ever this year I made a mild comparison when reviewing the new album from Viscera, but there's just something so unique to how he approaches his guitar that I would put up there with the likes of Tom Morello and Mike Ackerfeld. Yeah, I know it's djent sound cranked to the max, but I can think of few other players that can spin it in such a dizzyingly technical direction. Even when approaching breakdowns, the band refuses to turn down the quality of their playing. Where most other groups would use these big, dumb riffs as a chance to give their fingers a rest, Joe seemingly can't resist mingling yet more earworm guitar noodling amidst the crushing chugs. And that's another thing I hear first-time listeners, myself included, say about this band. Despite clear dedication to keeping their songs on the complex and technical side of the spectrum, that never manages to overshadow the through line of engaging and even catchy songwriting. They've even gone so far as to throw in little Easter eggs from other instantly identifiable classics like a djentified version of Metallica's legendary One solo around the 2.5 mark of Domination. Or their own rendition of the Tetris theme on Hollow. I've never been able to get into bands like Rings of Saturn due to the sheer sensory overload that makes most of their songs kind of run together for me, but Within the Ruins seem to have struck the perfect balance between lightning-fast proficiency and infectious grooves and doo-doo riffs to make each stand on its own merits and stick in your brain long after. So clearly the album is good, but with all of this praise, I still haven't even gotten to the key question. Is Blackheart as good as the band's previous output? Overall, I'd say mostly. This is something I plan to explore even further in my upcoming album tier list video when I talk through the full discography, but in short, it's close but not quite as solid as past efforts. For one, I would say that the moments of clean singing on this album feel a little uninspired. This has never been a particularly strong point of the band's sound, and something I've considered to still be mostly sort of in progress in terms of how to best tie it into their overall sound. But even so, I think that Halfway Human was more successful on this front. Honestly, there are many tracks on this album that would probably be more enjoyable without them. The other thing is that song for song, it just doesn't feel quite as consistent or potent as the last three outings either. Whereas Halfway Human and especially Phenomena are positively bursting with single-worthy tracks and endlessly memorable and even quotable moments that gripped me instantly, Blackheart falls just a little bit short of the admittedly high bar that they've set for themselves. I will say that Deliverance is one of the best songs that the band has written to date, possibly even cracking the top 10. And while the other tracks are also great, even excellent at times, few of them had that same immediate sense of impact. If I were to throw out a few of my other favorites, Open Wound, Hollow, and the title track certainly come to mind. But again, I want to be clear, that's not at all to say that this is in any way a bad album either. It's mainly that the other ones are so good that this one just has a lot to live up to. Taking that out of the equation entirely, I have no qualms in calling this one of the best deathcore albums of the year. One that I would certainly tag onto the tail end of my already existing list. Turning to my three scales, I give Blackheart a 9 for enjoyability. It's another high energy and engaging album that has no bad tracks, even if I don't love it quite as much as the last few albums. I give it a 10 for musicianship. Like I said, the performances here are absolutely dizzying, and overall the songwriting is strong and pretty dynamic. And I give it a 7 for innovation. Nothing particularly new for the band or genre on this one, but if you're already a fan, it's just more of what you already love. So an 8.7 overall and a B+ for Within the Ruins and Blackheart. Get it once more via eOne and Good Fight Music. Y'all, thanks as always for watching, and as always, let me know down in the comments what you thought of this album, and also what is your favorite deathcore album of 2020 so far. Be sure to stick around, because I actually have a video of my 5 favorite deathcore releases that I put out before this one, and depending on when you're watching this, there will be a tier list of all of the albums from Within the Ruins ranked tier list style. So again, plenty of reasons to subscribe if you have not yet already. Also in the description you can find links to our social media where you can follow us, the email newsletter I send out personally every Friday, metaltrenches.com for even more reviews and content, and our Patreon and Subscribestar if you want to take that extra jump to becoming a full-on supporter. Just $1 a month gets you early access to content and helps me keep this train a-rolling. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.